Wait.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you to Abraham and Jerry for inviting me to teach a Bagel U class. This is so exciting. And I'm really excited about our topic today because I love to sing, I love Jewish music, and I come from an Ashkenazi background on both sides of my family. Our ancestors come from Lithuania, Poland, Russia, that area. And so that's where a lot of my music and what feels really, familiar and nostalgic and meaningful to me, that's where all that music comes from. And so, along with you, I'm learning about the music from other parts of our Jewish diaspora. And it's been really exciting, and I'm really excited to share that with you because it's very cool. And so I was thinking we could start with just, I don't want to assume that anyone, that all of us here are from one background or another, that we've had, only one kind of exposure to Jewish music. So I would like to invite us to go around and say, I know we all know each other pretty much, but I guess to say your name and where your family comes from. So if you identify with, if there are people who come from Sephardi or Mizrahi backgrounds or Ashkenazi or any others, would love to know who's in the room.
Well,
So
I'll start. I'm Miriam, and both of my parents were Ashkenazi. My father was born in Russia. My mother's family, we really don't know, but probably Poland. My sister married a Sephardic man, and mostly what I've learned from that is the food.
perfect.
I'll go next, Abraham. My father grew up in Jerusalem and came to America at 19. My mother immigrated with her mother, following her father many years later, uh, from Russia, from Volhynia Gubernia, which is really the part of northwestern Ukraine, but the map always changed. So, but then when I had my DNA done, I'm 88% Ashkenazi,
Cool.
and that's all I know. Yes.
What else? What else
Well,
are you?
oh, yeah, there was apparently like 11% Sephardic, and that may have been with the unknown number of generations of somebody who went probably from Europe to the Holy Land, but it may have been one or two generations. I don't know. The mystery.
Okay, I'll go next. My family's from Ireland. I'm an Irish Catholic. I
Great.
love music. I love music. So I
Great.
love learning as much as I can.
Amazing.
But they've been over here many generations.
Amazing.
And I'm Ashkenazi on both sides, probably Poland, but yeah, always changed.
Yeah.
And I'm with Sharon there. My family came on the Mayflower, to be honest. Irish and English only on my side, but I've been living for more than 30 years with Alicia and her family. They all came from Poland and Russia, and my daughter also, the donor was she's actually Mizrahi. Jewish, and so we've introduced a lot of different kinds of traditions, and we love all kinds of music. And I have had a lot of chances, been to Israel several times, and really got interested in singing and learning about Israeli music, modern Israeli music as well. So super happy to be here.
Yay. Thank you, Anita. Judy, and then we'll go to Sally if Sally's there.
Well, Matt's driving, but he can tell you Irish, Catholic, and
Yeah, and making a long winding turn on the highway, which pretty much describes how I got here. I really love all different types of music, and particularly folk and native
and jazz. And he's a big jazz guy. So he loves a lot of music. When my daughter's DNA was done actually at Mount Sinai for medical reasons, they did our family. I'm 99.9% Ashkenazi with like 1/10%, what
Neanderthal.
Neanderthal. So we're looking at Neanderthal. So, they obviously were in the same spot. Specifically, my mom's family, part of it was in Alsace-Lorraine, which went back and forth between France and Germany. And my father's, we have back for about 400 years in Germany because we have graves that far back. But in terms of music, I love music. And it's interesting because my mom's family were opera lovers, and did not like the Ashkenazi cantorial music of some of the great synagogues. They liked other music as well. And my father's was from a very small village where it was their own interpretation of things. So he wasn't in one of these, big synagogues. But I love modern Israeli music. I love music in general. And I love when Miriam sings. And I really do love Joey Weisenberg and all of these incredible modern nigums and all of this new Jewish music, way better than the conservative one that I was raised with. So I really love hearing Miriam bring us some of those things. So thanks, Miriam.
Thank you, Judy. We'll go Sally and then the other Judy. So Sally and Judy, who just joined, we're starting our class today on Jewish music across the diaspora, and we're just starting by sharing just where our own backgrounds, lineages, heritage is from. So if you are Jewish, if your ancestors are from, like an Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Mizrahi background, if not, or if they're not, if your ancestors weren't Jewish, just where they're from, like where are the musical traditions. I just wanted to know like the musical traditions that we're all coming from, and what we have in the room, so that we can start from that place and know, where we're all going for the first time together versus, where some of us have already been to in music before.
Anita and I came over on the same boat. So my family's English, Irish, and Welsh. However, I've practiced Judaism for 56 years, so I have a lot of background there.
Great.
And I love all kinds of music. Not all kinds, I really have to say. Lots of music.
Wonderful. Judy England, are you there?
She's muted.
Okay.
Well, if
Can I add one
Yeah.
last thing? I just want to say my biological father he would have been a professional musician if he had had time for it, but he was an avocational musician. He was a bass player and a trombone player. And I grew up on a heavy diet of barbershop music and jazz. That's what I grew up with, because my father played in a jazz band and also was the director of the Miami barbershop chorus. So that's what I grew up listening to, not Jewish music until much more recently. But some of those same, like the understanding of melodies and things, really lots of music, let's just put it that way, and love it.
And I love you saying that, because what we'll see today, I think, is that music, it's like the question of like, what is a certain kind of music and where it comes from and how it was influenced. Like, it's kind of all, it's a really hard question to answer. Like who, like which music is which cultures or something, because there's been so much, especially with Judaism, there's been so much movement and interchange and exchange of tradition around the world that, like, you know, yeah, that the roots of any kind of particular kind of music are often informed by this like fusion of many different things. And so we'll see that a lot in Jewish music. So yeah, Judy, if you do come, you're welcome to say where your family is from. And I think for now we'll start by I just really want to sort of start by just crowdsourcing and making ourselves a list of what just kind of, if you could just forget that we're going to be talking about the diaspora today, I want to just start with like, what comes to mind? What are our associations when you say Jewish music? Like kind of like, what do you think of when I say Jewish music? What comes to mind? What is the phrase Jewish music mean or make you think of? So
Horror.
the horror, yeah. So exactly, just call things out. I'm gonna kind of make a list for us.
Klezmer.
What did you say? Sorry.
Klezmer.
Klezmer. Yes, definitely.
Joy.
Joy.
Yes.
Amazing.
And sorrow.
And sorrow. Yes.
Chanting.
I'm a BJ addict. So when I think of music, I just go on in whatever way there.
Jewish
Concerts, everything.
music.
Well, BJ is a synagogue in New York, and they've known, and everything is about music. So everything has music. So it's all different kinds. So I think of the range from Torah through every service is all different kinds of music. Like I love Ladino music. I love all of it.
Okay, so we've got Ladino. I'm gonna define what Ladino is. It is, you know how Yiddish is like it's a Jewish language that's the combination of German and Hebrew. Ladino is Spanish and Hebrew, so it's like a Sephardi Jewish language that was spoken in a lot of Sephardi music, or some Sephardi music, especially from Spain and the Iberian Peninsula, is in Ladino. Okay, so we got the horror, klezmer, joy, and sorrow, B'nai Jeshurun, Ladino. Anything else come to mind when I say Jewish music? Like, what is it?
Chanting and tropes.
And tropes,
Israeli folk
Nusach.
music for dancing.
Israeli music, Israeli dancing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and nusach, I heard you say, Anita. And
I also
yeah,
think
like
of the Broadway version of
Fiddler.
Jewish music, Fiddler on the Roof, Milk and
Fiddler.
Honey, all of these very much Jewish infused performances that led us to these songs that have become part of our more modern tradition.
definitely. I know when I was preparing this class, I was talking to my partner Elliot, and he was like, Adam Sandler Hanukkah song. You know, he's like, that's Jewish
Exactly, yeah,
music.
joy.
And I was like, well,
Barbara
it's true.
Streisand.
Barbara Streisand.
For sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
A lot of classical music too, like, Yasha Heifetz. I mean, there were a lot like amazing classical artists.
I mean, Leonard Bernstein with Wesley.
Bernstein, yeah.
Yeah.
Yitzhak Perlman.
Yitzhak Perlman.
So these are Jewish composers. Do we think of those? Like I'm like, oh right, Rodgers and Hammerstein,
Right.
but it's like, is that
Right.
Jewish music? Is, Fiddler on the Roof, totally.
Yeah.
The Sound of Music or other shows, like, would we say, oh, that's Jewish music? When I hear it, I'm like, that's Jewish. Or, yeah, so it's like, so these are questions. It's like, is it Jewish if it's by Jews? Is it Jewish if it's for Jews? Is it Jewish if it's connected to Jewish prayer? If it's in Hebrew or another Jewish language? Is it Jewish by the way it sounds? Like, what does sounding Jewish mean? These are all the
How
questions.
about Aaron Copland's music?
Oh,
Like Rodeo. Aaron Copland.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's music that's written by non-Jews that are referencing Jewish issues. So It depends on how you want to define it. So I'll just say as a joke, in, you know, a living room of a bunch of Jews, it's almost says, oh, he's Jewish. In other words, you're claiming it no matter what. So how do we claim it? Do we claim it because a part of it, whatever part of it, is part of a Jewish culture because we're such a minority? So whichever way
Yeah.
you want to define it.
Yeah, exactly. So, right. Is it,
Gotta throw Debbie Friedman in there too.
oh, Debbie
yeah.
Friedman for sure.
Molly Pekin.
So, right. Is it about Jews? Does it, right, if the content is the content about Jews or about Israel, does that make it Jewish? Does that, if it's, you know, there's all these questions, like there are Jewish, we know there's Jewish folk songs, you know, there's not just, it doesn't just have to be like Jewish prayer, like about God or about, you know, the liturgy. It could be, there's Jewish folk songs. A lot of the things that have become our liturgy, like Lecha Dodi, those are liturgical poems. They were written for the purpose of liturgy, but they're poems. They're not prayers and blessings in themselves. So these things, you know, there's like there's songs about Jewish holidays. You know, we have a lot of contemporary songs about, you know, like think of our Hanukkah song sheets and our Passover, the songs we sing around the Passover Seder, like, so those are Jewish. And I'm going to, just for us to start to get to hear, we're going to hear a lot of different music today, and to start to hear some of it in our ears, and also to just see what the world thinks of when we say the words Jewish music. I'm going to share my screen, and okay, and I'm going to show you all. Oh, I'm going to share with sound. That's very important for our stuff today. Okay, and so I'm sharing my Spotify page. We're going to say okay. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay, and so I wanted to just see what would happen if I just typed Jewish music into Spotify and see what they come up with. And so the top result is traditional Jewish, this playlist, it's traditional Jewish, Yiddish, and Israeli music. So we're gonna just hear little bits of this and see and try to connect in our minds, like, oh, does that sound, you know, Ashkenazi? Does that, we'll get into what that really means, but I'm just gonna play little clips from these. So yes, right? That feels, I think we would all say, you know, that feels klezmery, that feels Jewish. That's probably what all of us are thinking when we're thinking of this. There's, I don't know if you can pick out different instruments, but there's that, you know, clarinet that feels very klezmery to me. Let's see the next one. Okay, similar vibe. Let's see if Jewish music means anything different with the next one. Okay, more klezmery Yiddish, right? That has a Yiddish title. Hava Nagila, I think we all know, but we can play it just to have it. Right? So we had accordion there, Hava Nagila, very klezmer. Then we have some of these Hebrew titles, and so maybe we'll start to get a little bit of a different sound.
That's interesting.
So, and then we have
That's
this.
Sephardic.
Right, that sounds Sephardic. That has a very different, right? We can already hear the change in sound. It's not that klezmer, clarinet, accordion. It's got this more Middle Eastern sounding. Right? Similar vibe there.
I mean, most of
And
these are in minor keys also, aren't they?
okay, so yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. That was one of the things that I was thinking. I was wondering if someone would say in our list of what Jewish music is, because often that's what we hear is like, oh, Jewish music is in a minor key.
When we, when we did our, when we like making our song sheets for our little band, the little Shul by the River band, like everything is in the key of A minor. It's like
Wow. Yeah.
practically every song that we sing. What key is it? Oh, A minor, everything. It's like,
Wow.
Yeah. And so we're gonna actually talk about the scales that that different Jewish music uses in a moment, because yes, it's a minor key, and there's actually like a twist to it that makes it, there's like a kind of like a Jewish minor that's actually different than like a natural or traditional minor. So we're going to talk about that in a moment. But yeah, I listened through, we're not going to listen to all of these. I listened through a lot of these, and it's everything on this list so far is pretty much, it's either Ashkenazi or, that Sephardi Mizrahi sound. Yeah. And so that's not, that's not representing the whole of what Jewish music is, but that is representing that. The reasons that that's what we think of and that's what is represented here is because the majority of Jews in the world either do live or came from, Eastern Europe, or from the Middle Eastern region, and either still live there or and all Jews originally came from, can trace the lineage back to that Middle Eastern region. And so so that's where, that's like what is often thought of. But again, those sounds are pretty different. And then Jews have moved around the world, and it is, I think it's interesting for all of us to kind of complicate or expand our thinking of what Jewish music really is and means, because it's not just those two sounds. And so, we know that the music of like what we think of, what the number one things, Hava Nagila, that is the song we dance the Hora to, klezmer, that sound that as soon as you hear it, you're like, oh, that sounds Jewish, that is Ashkenazi music. But we know that Ashkenazi music was influenced by the sounds and music of Eastern Europe, which, like I just said, isn't where Jews originally came from. And so we know that wherever Jews traveled to in the world, their music was influenced by where they were living and by the sounds, the musical traditions of the place that they were in, including the instruments, actually. Because what's really interesting is the reason why Ashkenazi music started to kind of sound different and sound more European was because they were trying to play Middle Eastern music on European instruments, on Western instruments, that, a piano has a certain number of tones, of notes that you can play. And that's much different than the Middle Eastern instruments, like an oud, that has that's like a Middle Eastern kind of guitar that can play all these like quarter tones and half tones and all these really different notes that a piano you can't do on a piano. So our music had to kind of get transposed onto into Western modes and Western instruments. And so then it started to sound more Western. And so we know that, so if that happened in Ashkenaz, in Eastern and Central Europe, that happened anywhere Jews went. And so if Jews went to, South America, if Jews went to further down into Africa, or far east into Asia, like they were bringing their music, and it was getting adapted and changed based on the sounds and the instruments and the music that was there. And so, so I'd actually like to take a moment because I think, was it Miriam who brought up the minor key? You brought up the minor key, right? So I'd like to just take a moment to look at that. this is, okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, can you all see the piano here?
Yes.
Okay, so a major scale, just so we can like see it and hear it, and it's okay. I know there's all these ads that are distracting, but this is the best I could do. So, you know, we might not all be musicians or piano players. I certainly am not really a piano player or know much about music theory, but I'm going to play for you the three. I'm going to play for you the major scale, the natural minor scale, which is the regular minor scale, and then the Phrygish scale, which is like the Jewish minor scale. It's the scale that klezmer music uses. It's the scale that, you know, will sound Ashkenazi. And so I want to just you to be able to see it and also hear the differences. So a major scale is all the white keys, starting with this key, with C major. So that's, you know, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That's a major scale. The minor scale, instead of do, re, mi being, it goes, so we start using some of the black keys, and instead of do, re, mi, it's do, mi, do, re, mi, or I'm not singing it right, but that's the piano. Yeah. Which gives it that, starts to, you know, yeah, I'm curious if just playing the major scale and the minor scale, if different emotions, like which emotions would you identify or would you assign to those? Like what does it feel or sound like?
Interesting.
Like what would you say if there was an emotion that the major scale makes you feel? What does that feel like?
Well, I find the major scale is more upbeat and the minor is sadder.
Yeah, right? The major,
I'm curious about this third scale, the Jewish version of the minor.
yeah, so we'll get there in one moment.
Yeah, I think of the minor as being soulful.
Good.
Soulful. There's kind of like this like dark side to it. Like the major scale is all
A longing.
upbeat.
Yes.
It feels happy. It feels resolved. You know, it's like, okay, like everything's fine is like the feeling it gives. The minor scale is like, wait, like something's a little, like maybe and there's more feeling, there's more depth to it, there's more, yeah, I think emotion in some ways. And so the Jewish minor scale, the Phrygish scale, instead of or, it goes up a half step first. So it goes, and the whole scale is, and so I wonder what that sounds like to you, how that feels or sounds different, even in the minor.
Seems tense.
It's like tense.
Definitely more complex sounding.
Feels wrong.
Feels wrong.
Yeah, right.
Good, Jerry.
Yeah. Bad student.
There's like something's wrong. Okay, yeah, I understand. It feels like unsettling, maybe, kind of. There's like something, again, the major is like all resolved. It's like, but there's like,
Sounds like Stephen King. Sounds
yeah,
like
a little
Stephen
like,
King.
Yeah.
like creepy almost. Yeah. I think it also sounds, it's where we get that something that starts to sound more Middle Eastern, you know? It's like, this is the Ashkenazi scale. This is what klezmer music uses. So we think of it as so Ashkenazi, and we're on a piano, we're on a Western instrument, but it's got that, you know, that like, think of like Aladdin or Arabia, you know, it's like, na, 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 you know, it's like that kind of that more like Middle Eastern mode. And so, and I think, and so what's really interesting to me is that with that half step, with that interval being in that place in our scale, even in even when we moved, you know, as a people to Europe and started, you know, like our roots, where we came from, was preserved and was carried through in that structure, even though the rest of that scale is basically a minor scale. That half step kind of like tells the story of where we really came from. And so that also is that's also, yeah, what kind of, you know, you could say with that half step, that's what makes klezmer sound Jewish and not just European, you know, like it doesn't sound totally European, though it's not just a minor scale the way all, you know, other European music uses a minor scale. It's not necessarily what Polish folk music sounds like or Russian folk music sounds like. There's something Jewish to it because it has that Middle Eastern little bit to it. So I'm gonna bring us into, first of all, are there any questions? I know that, yeah, are there any questions, or did that kind of make sense, or yeah, Anita?
Just maybe a question, maybe a thought, but I wonder how much our, you know, like we're inundated with music and sounds that we associate with things. So like with modern culture, you see a movie or whatever, you know, you hear certain kind of music, oh, that's scary, other kind of music, oh, that's happy, whatever. Like, do we interpret the major scale as happy because we're just so exposed to that notion, or does it actually, you know, if you had no exposure, would hearing those notes in that order, you know, make your brain waves do something to signify happiness, and the reverse if you were listening to a minor scale? I don't know if it's very associated, or if it's really like actual, you know, connections to like the lived experience of the people who put music together using those. And I did not really ever think about or realize before that notion that the instruments, of course, having more capacity to manage more complex scales would make a big difference as to why, you know, why so much of the music sounds that way. That makes a lot of sense to me. And why it also sounds different when you are sort of forced to use instruments that can't use that scale, but you still want to continue making music. Why, you know, why there is such a commonality amongst the music. That makes sense to me in a way that I hadn't kind of thought about it before.
Yeah.
But I just wondered about, like, are we all saying, oh, it's happy because we're just like, we've trained our brains to think that, or?
That's a superb question. I mean, all of a sudden I'm thinking there must have been some science studies of where scales are played and measured on one's, psychological state.
But with babies,
Yeah.
mostly it's major scales, right? So,
And very uncomplicated, like
right,
movements of
very-
music, that's what attracts babies, like really like major scales and like thirds and fifths, things that really go together. That's what, you know, babies can focus on.
right. So
But-
that says something to me.
But we know
Yeah.
that these composers were not babies. So
No.
when people made this music,
It depends.
Yeah.
they were, well, that's true. Some were pretty young, but you know, they were making it, but also out of, yeah, like, was it because of their lived experiences that they were so attracted to these
Yeah.
the minor scales, or just they were, and now we associate those sounds with that kind of, you know,
Right.
response. I don't know. It's just a,
Does
I
our
think that's,
practice, does our religious practice in terms of going back thousands of years to our most ancient prayers, set the foundation for using minor instead of major scales? And is Torah trope more related to that? So do the origins come from the religious part of our?
Yeah. Okay. These are incredible questions, and this class is so amazing because I just, yes, there's a lot of things I want to say. Anita, first, your question I think is really cool and really interesting. And right, the question of, is it universal that the major scale sounds happy or sounds nice or sounds, easy or resolved? Or is that is that what we, growing up in the US and in the Western world, like, is that what we feel because that's what we're surrounded by? And then the Jewish minor or the minor feels, like maybe off in some way, or, eerie or something, or sad, or, any of these things. And it's like, right, I think that's really an interesting question. I also think we're going to see, I think hold on to that question, because when we start to hear, right, what we're hearing is the scale. We're going to hear that scale used to create songs that sound maybe really sad, maybe really happy. It'll be really interesting to take that question and see like what we do with those scales.
I want to add for another vantage point, and that's the music that somehow has evolved for particular holidays. For example, the music of Yom Kippur,
Right.
where you're pleading, where you're worried, where you're appealing, and all of that music has that, half scale character. So it's really the psychological state that you're in that ends up producing that sound.
Exactly. And so, right, I think to Judy's question, we definitely have utilized these different scales. The major scale we use in Judaism all the time. Aleinu, the Shema, like Torah, regular Torah trope is in a major scale. Haftorah trope is a minor scale.
Right,
And that's why
right.
that has that different, I think, really beautiful sound, but it feels different. There's like a different mood that then, we feel.
And-
So we have the major scale, we have the natural minor scale, we have the Fragish scale, like weekday nusach. Like nusach means just the sort of, it's not like a particular, like, how Debbie Friedman, she has the Misha Berach song, that's a particular melody, it's like a song. In the service, sometimes we have songs that we sing, that's like a whole melody, and sometimes we have, just little bits of like musical kind of motifs that we sing, to kind of start a blessing, close it, and that's called nusach. And so the weekday nusach is in the Fragish scale. It sounds like Yishtabach Shimcha Le'ad Malkeinu. It's that like na, 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 na. And that's different than on Shabbat when we kind of come out of the weekday, and we're in Yishtabach Shimcha Le'ad Malkeinu. That's Shochenad Nusach, which we sing on Shabbat, and it feels nicer and it feels lighter, and it's like a different energy. And so we have been using, we have used these different scales to do different things for us emotionally, like Abraham was saying on Yom Kippur. And I think it's really amazing that we don't, in Judaism, right, our history and our experience and any human experience in the world is not just one thing. It's not just happy and nice all the time. We need music for those other moments. Anita, yeah.
I just want to add, I feel like it feels really different also to actually sing it, as not just listen to it too. Like, I actually really love singing Jewish music because of the minors. I think it's a little easier to sing also as well, and perhaps because it is more complex, so you have a little more room for, but it feels very different than always singing in a major key.
Yeah, it kind of can be almost like a relief sometimes it's like, okay, like we don't have to just be doing this all the time. We can like be, oh wow, that was cool. There's fireworks.
Fire.
Okay. We can, that's a very funny reaction. We can just kind of like let go and just be how we are. And maybe how we are is like a little solemn or a little somber, or just we're feeling a lot of things and we're feeling unsettled. The world is like an unsettling place right now, like our music can hold us in that. And so, okay. So I want to make sure we get to hear music from, that's not just Ashkenazi, that's not just Sephardi, although we will get back into those. But I want to start to hear, and rather than just talk about the scales, actually start to hear some of these as songs. So I'm going to play 3 different Lechado Ds. Lechado Ds are, a central liturgical poem that we sing on Friday nights to welcome Shabbat. And so we're going to do 3 different Lechado D melodies. I'm going to play them like a minute or so of each. And yeah, then we'll get to talk about, what it feels like, what we noticed, what feels different, what the emotions are that the kind of singing this same prayer in different musical modes and different musical traditions from around the world, like what that sounds like and what that feels like. So we are going to start with this one. Okay, let me just share my sound. So that was one. Curious if you have guesses about where that maybe comes from, or what kind of music that sounds like. It is one we've already talked about today, so I'm not throwing any surprises at you. Like, did that feel familiar? Did it feel really different? Did you know it already?
I didn't know that one, but I liked it a lot. It felt very minor, but I don't know which minor.
Great. We got feels nice, feels minor, feels familiar.
Familiar, right?
Yeah, like you get it, right? Like it feels intuitive to us. We feel like even if you haven't heard it before, you get it. You kind of know it. You know how you would join in and sing it, right? Anita, were you going to say something or?
Just
No.
everybody started like immediately
Doing
we
this.
were all nodding along. Yeah.
Right.
And I apologize. I'm actually eating a little bit in between, which is why I keep turning off my camera so I could have a couple bites of my lunch that I made right before.
Great. Well,
It seemed to me like this would be the kind of thing that would be sung in a kibbutz.
Okay, it feels like a kibbutz. So yeah, so this actually, any guesses like Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Mizrahi, other?
More Sephardi,
Sephardi, yeah.
more Sephardi than
Okay.
Ashkenazi, but it sounds a little like they do different lachododies at B'nai Jeshurun, and sounds like a variation, and they come from South America, so I don't know,
Okay. Okay, feels Israeli. Okay, interesting. So this is actually an Ashkenazi. This is a Breslov waltz. So from like the Ukraine area, Breslov, and it's attributed to Rabbi Nachman of Breslov.
Wow.
And it is a kind of, and I wonder if the reason why it sounds more Israeli is because the guys, this is a recording from Romemu in New York, but I wonder because they were pronouncing the Hebrew with kind of like more Israeli accents. So maybe there's so many different things that makes us think, that it's one thing or another. But this kind of, it has that kind of Fragish quality to it. It has that minor quality. It is that, Eastern European sound. And I wonder if it has what feelings it kind of makes you feel, or what you would say, what feelings it kind of has to it.
Mellow.
Yeah.
it's warm and welcoming as the song itself is. It's our bringing in of Shabbat, so it's emblematic of what we're doing.
I love that. Okay. Does it feel happy, somber? Like, where does it fall on the like upbeat, happy to like, I guess mellow gave us an indicator that it's somewhere, it's not like, it's not so energetic and happy, but it's somewhere. Okay. So let's keep that in mind. And then we're going to play another. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to share again.
Shamuru bezakoru bedivori ehadi Ishimi anueli hami ohadi Adonai ehadi mushimo ehadi Ishemi puri pareti bori tuhiram Ehadodi rikirati kalam Ene shabati nakavera Ehadodi
Okay. What is that?
Sounds like Alvin and the Chipmunks.
That's what I thought. Alvin and the Chipmunks, but
Alvin
then
and the Chipmunks.
it sounded South American or Mexican.
South American, Mexican. Okay. What is, it had a very different sound, right?
Oh, yeah.
It had a very different sound immediately. It has that like upbeat, either guitar, ukulele, maybe even. It sounds like you're on a beach somewhere.
Right.
Maraca.
You
You need a maraca.
need a maraca. And right, you can probably hear they're pronouncing the words pretty differently than how we're used to pronouncing them. So we're thinking maybe they're not, somewhere in Eastern
A
Europe.
driving rhythm.
A driving rhythm. I love that. What about emotions? Does it feel like happy, sad?
Super And I'm wondering if there are children's voices in there. I was trying to
Good.
determine. It seemed to me, if you just played it, I would bet, this might be a bunch of kids, sing
Mm-hmm.
this. And that's why the rhythm is also very happy and catchy.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely
Yeah.
peppy, not a term that you use to describe a lot of other liturgical music.
Definitely. Yeah, I do think that the Alvin and the Chipmunk quality is because they're actual children. It's not the chipmunks, but
Good.
you're right,
Good
Judy,
call.
and you're right, Anita, that's why it sounds like that. So this is actually from the Abayudaya Jews of Uganda. There's a Jewish community of, I think at its height was like 3,000, now it's down to like 2,000 Jews who have been there since the early 20th century. And so this is their Kohavim Tikva choir. And it does, yeah, it has this very happy feeling. It has this, it feels not necessarily like.
Is this the community that was pictured on the flyer?
Yes.
Okay.
This is that community. And I can, just because it is, we're so used to what Jews, again, this question of like, what does Jewish sound like? What does it sound? What is Jewish sound? We also have the same thing when we're like, what does being Jewish look like? Or what does looking Jewish mean? What does sounding Jewish mean? And what does looking Jewish mean? And so because that's, the common, tropes are still so ingrained in us of what being Jewish looks like. I also want to just, because it's hard for us, it's hard for me growing up in, the US and Ashkenazi Jewish communities to really picture what Jews look like who don't look like me. I'm going to just share this photo so we just see like these are Jews in Uganda. They are Abayudaya Jews. And this is like, it's really cool to see this synagogue that looks really unlike synagogues that we are in, but has, the menorah, it has the Star of David, yarmulke, Kiddush cup, books. I'm not sure. I guess that, well, no, that looks like a window. I'm not sure where the ark is, but yeah, it is fully a Jewish community. And I'm sure that the sounds that we're hearing are, influenced by what their music sounds like in Uganda, and are, very happy sounding. I'm going to play a third Lechadodi for us.
What are you cooking? Really pancakes, so I thought I'd just give you a call. Well, I'm so glad.
Is that okay?
Oh wait, I just need to cue it up for a second. Sorry. Sorry, this link, I'm just pulling it up somewhere else actually. Okay. Now I'm going to share this out. Sorry, thank you for holding on. Okay.
היתעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, אורי אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. וצחולה תוך אמונה עם סגולה בואי קלה בואי קלה חדורי בקלה בני שבת תקבלה בני שבת תקבלה.
Okay.
Well, my dog sang along with this one and wagged her tail through the whole thing. So I
Oh,
have
she
to go
loved
back
it.
on
That's
mute,
so
otherwise
sweet.
you won't hear anything other than her barking.
Wow. So yeah, happy, upbeat. What are we feeling with this one?
Was that minor? I couldn't tell. It was so upbeat that I couldn't tell if that was in a minor key.
Yeah, that's so interesting, right?
I'm guessing Greek influence, like maybe Salonika or maybe even Yemen.
Any other guesses?
Hearing a little trilling in his voice. I didn't know any Moroccan influence. I don't know because his voice sounded the way he was singing. I was wondering about the vibrational component.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. So this is actually an Iraqi Khadodi, so from Iraq. And the artist is George Mordecai. And but this is a traditional, it's actually meant to go to Yaribon. So it's a traditional Iraqi melody for Yaribon, which is another, Jewish song. But it can go to Lechadodi or to other music. So at the end of the track is actually called Yaribon, but the end of it, they sing it to Lechadodi, so you can hear how it'll go with that. And a real, a kind of staple of Sephardi and or Mizrahi, because often you'll hear Sephardi and Mizrahi lumped together. They definitely are different, but are very connected in some ways, because so Sephardi comes from the, like I said, Spain, the Iberian Peninsula, and Mizrahi is, Middle Eastern, Iraq, Yemen, like you said, Jordan, that area, Israel. But there's been so much crossover in history, like the Islamic Empire came and conquered Spain, so brought, the if you know about like the Alhambra in Spain and like those kind, like there's lots of Muslim and Middle Eastern influence in Spain and in the music there. And then the Jews were exiled from Spain, and so then the Sephardim, the Sephardic Jews then went, and a lot of them were in Turkey and in other places on that side of the Mediterranean. And so yeah, you have a lot of Sephardi Mizrahi intermingling and crossing over. And this, what I was going to say is that a staple of, especially in liturgy, in songs, but also in davening or prayer style of services, Sephardi Mizrahi services often have the one person doing the verse and then everyone joining in for the chorus. And so something that we heard in this was George Mordecai singing and doing all those flourishes that it would be very hard to sing along to. The way we often in our Ashkenazi services, we sing along through all the verses together. When we do Lechadodi at KHN, we're all singing the verses if, maybe you don't know all the words to the verses, but we're all, we're all singing along, and then we're all doing the chorus of Lecha Dodi. And in Sephardi Mizrahi, you have sort of the the chazan, the cantor, this is like doing all these solo things and flourishes, and then everyone's joining into the chorus, which is easy to sing along to. So you have that kind of style. And I really appreciate what you said, Miriam, because like we said, like it's very happy and upbeat, but it is Mizrahi. It's definitely using those modes that have that, that half step that sounds really eerie. And it doesn't sound eerie when you're singing this, like, the way that they put the notes together, or the energy, the beat with which the rhythm with which they're singing is very happy and joyous. And it sounds probably more joyous than our like Ashkenazi. So it's very interesting.
Well, it certainly makes my dog happy. There's a definite difference. Her tail was going
very
back.
interesting.
She was singing along with it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so we're going to, I know, so far we've heard, Ashkenazi, Mizrahi, Uganda music, and we're gonna now just hear some. I couldn't find a Lecha Dodi from many other parts of the world, but I was able to find some music for us to hear from other parts of the world, so that we could just hear what Jewish music sounds like in other places. And so we're going to hear another some more clips. This is going to be actually, yeah, maybe I will continue the tradition of telling you after the fact. And we'll just let you hear it first and just hear what it sounds like. Okay. And
يوم هالشباب ينقامهم بيركو إلهيم ويقدسهم ميوم ريشون عد يوم هالشيشي لقراد الشباب نكتف نفسي في بشباب يتهبشي وقي يوم نوها يقرا يغوم يوم هالشباب ينقامهم بيركو إلهيم ويقدسهم.
okay. What did that sound like? Where in the world would you guess that's from?
Not a clue.
Not a clue. Sounds very different from the things we're familiar with that we kind of can place on a map, maybe. Okay.
Well, maybe an Indian influence.
Yeah, like it had seemed like a little Eastern influence in that one.
Mm-hmm. Like the instrumental part feels very like, yeah, I hear that too. Yeah. Okay.
Cochin, maybe? Cochin?
Cochin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it actually is from India. It's from this old, it's like a kind of scratchy recording because it's recorded in the 1930s. It's from a CD of Jewish music from Bombay, India. And from the 1930s. And they're yeah, there is and have been Jewish communities in India. And Cochin, there's like, yeah, there are specifically, this is different from that, but there's like specifically a lot of music. There was a lot of music from this community in southern India that then was often it was like women's music, and women would sing it. And then that community has since, pretty much a lot of this community has moved to Israel when Israel was founded. And so a lot of that music is no longer in existence, or no longer being sung. But there are women in the like Cochin custom who are trying to bring that music back and perform it. And so yeah, we have this song, so that it's like what sound, again, it's like coming back to like what sounds Jewish. Like, did that sound Jewish to you? What about it might have sounded Jewish, or what didn't sound Jewish? Did any of it sound Jewish? Any
There
part of it?
definitely some Hebrew words in there that, you could hear.
Yeah. Yeah. The name of that song is Yom HaShabbat, like that's as Jewish as it gets.
Doesn't get much more Jewish than that. But the melody and the tune did not sound like things we typically hear, but
yeah,
you could certainly hear Hebrew words.
Back in 2005, I visited Cochin, saw the synagogue. There may be one or two Jews left. And from its appearance, it looked, it had all the trappings, the bima and the ark and tiles and the cemetery. I would not have guessed that kind of music. I would not have, but of course there was no examples given, but visually it was, clearly a shul.
Yeah. And like, again, I couldn't find a lot of recordings from India for Jewish music. So I don't know what their services sound like. It is very interesting. Like I did look, we'll hear more, but I just wanted to say a couple of things. Is like, it's really interesting where the music did get, really influenced by the local musical traditions, and where it just became Ashkenazi music that then Jews in another part of the world were singing. Like, there's this group in Kaifeng in China, in like central China, there's this Kaifeng Jewish community, and all the recordings I found from them were them singing like Avinu Malkeinu that we sing, like they were singing all the tunes that we sing, and it didn't sound Chinese. It was Chinese Jews singing like Ashkenazi melodies. And so, yeah, it is interesting how, I don't know, in Cochin, I don't know if their Shabbat services if their Lachadodi would have sounded as different as the Ugandan Lachadodi sounds, but clearly their Yom HaShabbat, these other Jewish songs that they have that are clearly, liturgical in some way. They're singing about Shabbat. It's a song for Shabbat. That it does sound so different. It sounds so,
in Cochin,
Eastern.
the community was really very old. So it really had a long time in development. It was centuries old. Whereas in places where Jews were temporarily for example, in Shanghai, but those were European Jews, and any evidence there, it's clearly European. And Kaifeng, I don't know. It depends how many years they spent.
Right.
That's what it changes.
Right, exactly. Okay, we're gonna hear a couple more.
Miriam,
Yeah.
are there any from Ethiopian Jews where we know they were kind of separated from all of these other communities, and they weren't the result of really the diaspora as more, from the
Yeah,
influence?
I do have an Ethiopian song that we'll hear.
Oh, great.
So stay tuned. And you'll get to tell me how, different or similar it sounds to you. Okay, I'm going to bring us to, yes, okay, this one.
Kalte Nacht, an nebeldicke Finsterumetum, steht ein Gelefertreuertung auf sich herum. Und Regen schützt im Noraband, a Koschig lallt erinnernd, und seine Augen werden jeden Stund. Ich hab schon nicht kein Kojach mehr herumzugehen in Gas, ungerig und abgerissen von dem Regennass. Ich schlepp sich vom Baginen, keiner geht mir zu verdienen. Alle lachen, machen von mir Spaß. Upitje koifsche Papyrosen, Druckene von Regen nicht vergossen. Koifsche billig Benemones, Koif not auf mir Rachmones, Ratevet von Hunger mich hat zehn. Upitje koifsche Schwebalachantiken, der Mied wird ihr Jossem der Gewichen. Und sie ist mein Schreien und mein Läufen, keiner will bei mir nicht kaufen, alle lachen, machen von mir Spaß.
Edith Piaf.
Edith Piaf is what it sounds like. Okay.
It reminded me of the
Her
song
books.
my parents had of the Barry sisters.
Sorry, can you say that again, Miriam?
It reminded me of the 78s that my parents had of the Barry sisters.
Okay, cool.
We listened to all that Yiddish music all the time.
Yeah. Okay, so right, so we're hearing Yiddish, right? That's the language we're singing in. Okay, so Jewish. What else are we hearing? Does it sound like, yeah, what does it sound like?
I heard an accordion in there too.
Accordion? What were you gonna
Thought I
say,
heard.
Judy?
It sounded anything like Yiddish, like from Yiddish theater to anywhere from Romania through Poland, through that
Romania, Hungary, it
all
sounded
the way,
like that.
all the way through. Or it could have been in New York on Second Avenue when they were singing in
Right.
theater, all of those things. I mean,
So it's got, from what you're saying, I'm hearing there's drama, right? It's theater. Theater makes me think of drama. So there's some drama to it, right? It's kind of has this dramatic sound. Okay. Abraham?
I'm hearing two different things. The
Great.
voice is one, the music is very different. The voice has a kind of plaintive thing, almost like fado. But the music had bounce and energy behind it. It was like Russian or Slovakian or, I don't know, I can't put it together.
Okay. You're so right, because it is two different things mashed together. This is actually Argentinian Yiddish tango. The drama is tango. We're hearing I'm gonna actually, maybe I'll play a little bit more of it, because I want you to like listen. Now, once you know that, you're gonna be like, oh, that's the tango.
Steht ein Gelefertreuertung auf sich herum. Und Regen schützt im Noraband, a Koschig lallt erinnernd, und seine Augen werden jeden Stund. Ich hab schon nicht kein...
Right? You hear that, like, but what's really interesting is, so Jews went to Argentina. Obviously, a lot of them went, in the 30s and the Holocaust time. But a lot had actually gone earlier, and this Yiddish, like the tango, kind of developed, and like with some Jewish influence from Eastern Europe, is why you're like, oh, it sounds Russian, it sounds whatever. And yeah, they would sing these Yiddish because, again, it has that like really, emotional, turbulent kind of feeling. And then it actually came back, like the Yiddish tango from Argentina actually came back to Europe and was all the rage in, like, it swept across, Eastern Europe. So it came back to like Ashkenaz land, and was something that even like during the Holocaust actually was used. Like the Nazis would like force like bands, like concentration camp bands of musicians to play these like Yiddish tangos, and it actually was like really, yeah, like really, it's really horrible. And then but then also, like Judy said, they also went to New York and were part of these, this like Yiddish, this whole like theater scene here. So yeah, there's a lot of rich history. This singer is Zoli Goldfarb, who was born in Buenos Aires. And so there is this, like very much carrying the Ashkenazi, but melding with traditions from South America and then coming back to Europe and to the US. So all of you were right, in all of that, in all of what you were hearing. And okay, I know we're getting a little short on time, so I'm going to play two more and then we'll just have a closing. So this one, I'm actually going to show you the video again because it, I think, really helps to see. And there's some words, some sort of history in the video, but this is Ethiopia. So I'm going to share my screen. Oh wait, make sure I'm sharing with computer sound. Hold on. Oh yeah, okay, great. Okay. Eloheinu, Elohim, Eloheinu, Elohim, አባታችን ኤሎሂም እናመስግን፣ በመለከት እናመስግን፣ በከበሮ እናመስግን፣ በዋሽንት እናመስግን፣ በክራርም እናመስግን፣ በመቃብር እናመስግን አምላካችንን ኤሎሂምን ኤሎሄኑን ኤሎሄኑን ኤሎሂምን ኤሎሄኑን ኤሎሄኑን ኤሎሂምን ሰንበትን ባረካት፣ ሰንበትን ቀደስካት፣ ሰባተኛዋ ቀን ያረፍክባት፣ የእጆችህን ሥራ የፈጸምክባት፣ የተቀደሰች ሰንበት ልዩ ናት፣ ሰንበት ልዩ ናት፣ ሻባት ልዩ ናት፣ ሻባት ልዩ ናት፣ ሻባት ልዩ ናት፣ ሻባት ልዩ ናት፣ ለእስራኤል ቤት ልዩ ናት፣ ለአብርሃም ልዩ ናት፣ ቤተ ሰላም ቤት ልዩ ናት፣ ለባለእጅ ቤት ልዩ ናት፣ የተቀደሰች ሰንበት ልዩ ናት፣ ሰንበት ልዩ ናት፣ ሻባት ልዩ ናት፣ ሻባት ልዩ ናት፣ ሻባት ልዩ ናት። Okay, I'm gonna pause this there. So yeah, Ethiopian Jews, we get a little bit of their history through that. It's hard history, like it is in many places for Jews everywhere in the world. And that is, yeah, so, right, I think I'm curious what sounded Jewish, what didn't sound Jewish, or what we think of as Jewish. What were you feeling watching that?
I will answer that question is that we tend to think that whatever we grew up with is Jewish and nothing else. And that's a terrible loss. And what you're doing for us now is opening our eyes to appreciate this vast cultural spectrum. And it's fabulous. Thank you.
Great. You're welcome. I'm grateful too, because I didn't know any of this really. Yeah, any other answer? I don't know, I know I heard some Hebrew words, Eloheinu, like we say Eloheinu, our God, that's what that means. I think some Shabbat, and then right, you can like see them wearing the talit and the yarmulkes, and honestly, their story sounds like, the story of Jews all throughout, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, the Middle East, being forced to convert and deprived of land and having to practice in secret.
I didn't see any women in that video.
That's true. That is really interesting.
Good
Yeah.
point.
And so this isn't that video, there's a lot to know there. That's not indicative necessarily of like all of what Ethiopian Jewry is and means. And that's not necessarily how all of their music sounds, but it felt like a real, it sounds very African to me, the beats, the melodies, the ways of singing. And also I'm thinking like if we hadn't, some of the singing sounds Middle Eastern in some ways. It has that, like the singing itself, the beat felt pretty different from the Mizrahi stuff that we've heard, but again with the words and the story and the people who are doing it, it's very Jewish. Yeah. Anita.
We did a unit like this last year with Shul School with a lot of these same countries too, but we didn't include any music, and now I'm sad about that. So maybe the next time we do that unit. And just so you know, we have a member who's a Jew from India, Judith Daniels, who came and talked to the kids and showed them pictures of herself as a young child and in the Jewish community that she grew up in. And of course, things have changed very much in India now, but it was really cool to get to see, like the Jews of Uganda, and that, just to give the children a broader sense of like, yes, what does it mean to be Jewish and what does Jewish look like? But we didn't ask them the question of what does Jewish sound like. So next time I do it, I'm definitely going to be sure to include this. Thank you. It's very enlightening.
What you said about Abraham, about enlightening us is, Israel's this microcosm where I had a friend who was a psychologist and worked with the Ethiopian Jews when they were airlifted in, and the prejudice and the way they were treated. And it was just so horrible for the children. And just even today, the divisions among, so we say, what is Jewish? And I think of a lot of people disagree. And when it said pre-Talmudic, that really struck me as what that means, in that they are not reading, they are formed not based on everything the sages say. So their culture is really from biblical and then goes off in its own direction. So we have a lot to learn from that. Instead, they were being treated as if they were barbarians because they hadn't seen toilets or refrigerators, and they had been living under African, really terrible poverty conditions. So that their music survives is something I think that's beautiful that you brought it to us today, and that maybe we can have one at services, Ethiopian melodies, or for one of our prayers.
Yeah, I would love to see some of this integrated so that we all learn more. I feel very badly about the B'nai Israel. They're being so mistreated even today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I feel like, and then it is really interesting because, and this is a much larger conversation, but I know for me, there's this kind of question that comes up around like appropriation, and it's like, well, who, like, yes, this is Jewish music, and I'm Jewish, and so like, it's like, so is Ethiopian Jewish music my music, or is my music, Ashkenazi music or Mizrahi music, and like, is the diff like where, like, certainly the I guess sort of the line between or not even the line between, but just holding the tension of it being both like not wanting to erase, and not know about the Jewish music and traditions and ways of, being, and Jews who don't look Ashkenazi, who are, or who aren't Ashkenazi, who aren't white, who are from other parts of the world, like really educating ourselves, learning about who they are and who they are in our own communities. Like I said at the beginning of this call, I don't want to assume that this isn't us, that the people in this room aren't represented by what we're talking about here. And like, in our community at KHN, like Anita just said, we have someone who grew up as a Jew in India. And so, right, this is us, and this is us all together. And, yeah. And having the responsibility of, right, not erasing these things or not thinking of them as not Jewish, and also thinking about like, yeah, I'm not saying that it's appropriative or it's an appropriation to, for us all, if all of us at KHN are not from Ethiopia, to sing Ethiopian songs. Like, I don't think that's necessarily the case. It's a question that I think about too, in addition to all of this, is like, are we, are then we taking it on in a way that's, yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking about that, or just like, can I sing it in a way that would do it justice, because I am not from that lineage and I don't really know, there's, in Mizrahi music, there are certain ways of like, yeah, there are just certain notes that my voice isn't used to doing, because they're these quarter tones that like, that's not intuitive to me, that's not familiar to me. And so if I try to sing it, am I going to do it, wrong or miss it, and then not, kind of do it justice. And so these are all, I don't think there's wrong things that I'm saying, but I just, yeah, there's a lot of questions to it that I'm, grateful for the opportunity here to talk about with you all. Okay, and that's our time, but I hope that today, thank you so much for coming and for really
thank
engaging
you.
and participating.
Excellent.
You did
Really
an amazing
excellent.
job.
Just
Great.
excellent.
I'm so glad.
Just excellent.
And yeah, I hope that for us, we all, I really, yeah, for me, it's been really helpful to think about what does sounding Jewish mean, and hopefully, expanding that for us today. So, yeah.
Really awesome.
Thank you, Miriam.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Take
See
care.
everybody soon.
Yeah.